Welcome to the Chaos Engine Podcast. My name is Chris. I am one of the hosts over here, GMs, handlers. I run games here, along with Cody, Misha, Tyler, Jake. And hey, thanks for joining us. Today we have a cool, fun interview series that kind of started with Tom from Stories and Lies and Cody from Suffer Not to discuss just GMing stuff. Not always tied to Delta Green, but it always kind of circles back to Delta Green because that's our love. But yeah, I just wanted to sit down, talk with them about building a campaign, get some insight, and hope you guys enjoy this conversation. Before we get into it, I need to thank the fine folks over at Patreon. They are Taylor, Drowen, Miles, Randy, Yam, Thomas, Randy G, Laszlo, Hovo, Hovo, Jeremy, Ben, Garth, Nelson, Clorpdonk, Cody, Hygienic, Ty, Eldrick Owl, Samanos, Daddy of the Arcane Lore, and his prestigious Sir Mumbleton the Third. Thank you guys for your continued support over there. We really do appreciate it. And with that, I'll get you into this interview. Boy. Howdy, everybody. We're back for another GM Handler Roundtable. I'm joined with Thomas and Cody again. I'll let them introduce themselves and their shows, and then we'll get into today's subject. I'm Chris, if you don't know that. I'm with the Chaos Engine Podcast. Play a bunch of different systems, mainly Delta Green. We just started some Stars Without Number, and that's me. Who else is here with me?
I'm Cody from Suffer Not, brought to you by Old Parasol Productions. We do Call of Cthulhu show, totally homebrewed, with sound effects and music and all that jazz, and other stuff coming down the pipeline when we all have time for it.
Good. I'm Tom Ogus. I'm with the Stories and Lies. And so we're a primarily Delta Green podcast. We have a little bit of Call of Cthulhu thrown in there. And so we take our actual play and edit it all up and spice it up and make it more cinematic and television-like, like episodic. So we're doing God's Teeth right now, but we've got a raft of other interesting and great stories in our backlog.
It's very true. I'm so bummed I don't get to listen to what you guys are doing right now. But I live vicariously through the artwork that comes out. I'm like, that character looks cool. I can't wait to see what they do. And Cody, I still have to catch up on your guys' newest episode. I've been listening to a non-fiction audiobook, which is new for me. I typically do fiction books, so I'm venturing into the world of non-fiction. And
which book?
The 1619 Project.
What is that?
It's an essay about the effects of slavery throughout, like, the various different forms throughout America. So, like, banking, obviously social injustice that's been done, and there are essays from different people about the different ideas. And like the whole premise is that in 1619 there was the first group of slaves that were brought over on the White Lion, I believe was the ship, and it was the basis of them becoming the slave labor that built America before it was the Mayflower came over. And so it kind of builds off of that and just talks about so far just the systematic racism that's built into everything that we do in this country. And so it's a real good thing to be listening to in our current events. I'll tell you that much. So
I'm also reading two books because I try to balance out the nonfiction or fiction with nonfiction. Killing Commendatore is the fiction one, which is kind of weird. I have a lot of thoughts on it. It's also super long, but the nonfiction one is somewhat similar to what you're reading. It's The Glorious Cause, which is about the revolution, right? Oh, nice. I figured. I know a lot of Americans know like the broad general strokes of like no taxation without representation and whatnot, sure. But I'm like, I want to actually read a like book on it. You know what I mean? It's super interesting. All the little ways they would fuck with the tax collectors and try to get them to resign, and like they would just barge into their house and destroy all their furniture and paintings and everything to get them to resign. And there was one guy who wouldn't resign, so they got a wooden coffin, and he still wouldn't resign. They put him in there. They dug a 6-foot hole. He still wouldn't resign. It wasn't until they put the tax collector in the coffin in the hole and started putting dirt down it that he finally said, okay, I'll resign.
Wow.
There you go.
Yeah.
Nice.
I've got to do more reading. I basically have one book. My wife gives me these books every Christmas, like these mysteries.
Okay.
That I'm working on, which is it's a puzzle mystery, but it's a long story. But I spend way too much time. Like I got to get off my phone. It's my problem. I'll sit there reading stuff like what's going on, and instead of reading a book, and I probably need to unplug and get into literature, and then kind of escape that way into nonfiction or fiction.
That was my goal last year, was to read more books, and I did a lot of audiobooks, which I just don't have a whole lot of time at home. Like I think I have an hour to myself after I get the kids to bed, lunch is made, blah, blah, all that kind of stuff. So
Yep.
Yeah. So it's just like, I can listen to audiobook throughout the day. We're good. So, but yeah. So
how do you feel about e-readers?
I
Mr.
have
Togus?
one. Oh, okay.
Or you, or either of you, I guess. Because I was going to say, if you're on your phone a lot, what a friend of mine does is he just puts books on his phone. And that's how he quit social media, was anytime he got that urge to go on, Instagram, Reddit, whatever, he would just open up the Kindle app or whatever it is and just read instead.
Interesting.
And now he reads like 20 books a year, plus.
Yeah. I should check that out, because we have a tablet that I used to use all the time with my Kindle on it, and it's a tablet, so it's like paper size, and I was reading books and magazines on that, and then we let my kid use it, at some point for kid stuff, and then she figured out my password, which is not hard to do, and completely bypassed all the parental controls. It was on my side of the Kindle, watching YouTube and doing all the stuff she's not supposed to do. And so my wife deleted my profile as well as her profile, just went nuclear on the tablet. And I have not gone back and reset any of that stuff. I got to at some point put it back together again.
We bought he's my 8-year-old we bought him I think for his last birthday. So when he was 7, we bought him an e-reader, just to try to get him more in the reading, and we signed him up for this book program, and he didn't read any of it. And so I was like, I'll try this out. We'll see what we can do. And there is no good adult books to read on this program. Like, it's all just like rated X raunchy love books. I'm like, I don't really want to read vampires and werewolves bacon right now. That's not really my forte. But I found like one book that's like a noir detective space story. So I'm trying it out there, and so far it's not bad. Like, it's definitely a weird adjustment for me, but I like it. I'll probably continue doing it. So, yeah. But we're here today to talk about campaigns. Now, we all run campaigns. We're all here, various GMs. I think I'm kind of the primary for my show. Cody, you're the primary for your show. Tom, I would say you're the primary for Stories and Lies.
Yeah, that was the intention originally, but we've adapted over time. Yeah,
you guys have a much better track record of variety of people running the show. So, but yeah, I just kind of wanted to talk to you guys about that. Like, how do you go about deciding on an idea for a campaign? Do you start with the system that you have involved? Do you just get an idea and then what system would fit this idea best? I know, Tom, I especially wanted to ask you about creating a campaign within Vampire the Masquerade and that kind of world, because I know very little about that, and I don't know if there's a lot that you can do with that when it comes to how you prep for Delta Green, or is it similar, different? I was wondering that.
I mean, I'll start with that. So, I mean, I think maybe like most of us, I started out in D&D, as a kid, as a high schooler, in early college, it was D&D, and that was pretty much pickup gaming. We'd all show up, we'd roll some characters or pull the ones out from our folders, and just, okay, let's pick up a story. It was a lot of pickup, just we'll make some shit up, is what it was. And sometimes somebody had an idea, but mostly it was very much just spur of the moment role playing. Is how I started. And then for Vampire, it's been about 30 years, man. It's 30 years ago. So I'm talking the 90s is when I was really into it. I played into the aughts as well. But that it's very, very world building. It's very, very much about the world and the lore and the background, the mythos and these characters. While we didn't do pickup role playing, we actually, for Vampire, you make these characters, and it's not like you just roll it up. You're making these characters who ostensibly have been alive, for a while. I mean, sometimes if you're playing the game, you get like, oh, I'm a human and I got bit by a vampire. That's one entry point for the game, but that's not, you play that once or twice and that's boring after a while. Most of the fun stuff was us like, I got this character who was, the vampire Lestat, from New Orleans in like the 1600s or whatever, kind of a guy who's been around for a while, who's got hundreds of years of contacts and lore and stories and failures and successes. And he moves into a new town and we kind of pick the story up there. So everybody at the table, like as a storyteller, as we call it storytellers, you work with your players, and I would work with my players for like weeks. Who was this person? Where did they come from? Before that, what did they do? Who did they know? What were they involved in? These history points, like are going back to the Revolution or going back to the Civil War, or going back to, if they're from some country, we'd look up the country's history.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
If they're like Ireland or England or France or whatever, you're like, were they involved in this event? How was there? We'd like make these background stories up. And we keep it all to ourselves. Like the storyteller would know it and the player would know it, but none of the other players. So there wasn't a session zero. We made our characters all individually.
Interesting.
And we bring them all to the table. And my job when I did a couple different campaigns for Vampire the Masquerade, was I had to like make a city. I'm like, what's my city? All right. If San Francisco is one I did a couple times. So I knew it real well. And I was like, okay, who's in charge? Who are the other clans? What are their names? What are their histories? What are their blah, blah, blah. Like you make all these great characters. That's what I would do. I spent all this time making these great characters. And how do they feel about each other? Who hates who? Who owes who a debt? Who wants revenge against who? And like set all this kind of dynamics up. Make it usually something pretty stable or with a little powder keg going on. And then you introduce these characters your players made to this environment. And then what I'd have to come up with for a campaign is like some inciting incident, something happens, something interesting that draws them all together, like a murder plot, or an interesting artifact arrives in town, or some bad guy moves in that everybody wants to deal with, some motivation for your characters. Mm-hmm. So once you've done all this work, like this prep work, cities and characters and people and player characters and stuff, then it writes itself. That was the beauty of Vampire the Masquerade. It's a fucking sandbox game. It's like I tell my players, learn about all these people, learn about these problems. They start figuring out what their levers and tools are. One player has taken over the airport, for instance, and he runs the airport. What are some problems that are happening? What he's discovered with their other vampires trying to sneak stuff in. One player's in the finance district and he's very influential in the what levers does he have to pull? And the players start coming up with stuff and we just riff off each other. And sometimes the players are kind of rivals of each other, or they're temporary allies, but they both want something, a power base or whatever. They both want to control the ferry system. I don't know, whatever it is. Mm. So, but we just do a lot of these meetings. We all meet up. Everyone role plays their stuff. They have lots of conversations. Vampire the Masquerade is so much conversations in character between the players, between the NPCs, between these problems. With witnesses, they'll find a witness. They'll find some clues. They'll be digging into somebody's background. And then sometimes you'll break out into combat. You'll have this supernatural combat, which isn't really what the story's about.
Right.
But it's like, then what's the consequences of what that just happened? Who hates you now because of what you've done? Who do you owe a debt to? Who's covering up for you? And we just play out this supernatural soap opera drama, whatever. And it's week to week to week. And that's just how and then as a storyteller, every now and then you have to interject something new, a new character, a new plot, a new problem. But I don't have to come up with the solution. I think that's the most important thing about World of Darkness kind of games. Mm-hmm. As a storyteller, I don't have to think in advance, okay, this is how they solve the problem. I got ideas, but most of the time I'm like, let's see what they do.
Right.
Let's show me what you got. Oh, I'll play with your ideas. So it's a lot of just throw them something, let them work their levers, let them talk to each other, let them scheme. Let's see what happens. And we sandbox the damn thing and we come back next week and we'll do it again.
Is Vampire always in modern day, or can you? I assume you can workshop it.
Yeah, you can workshop.
Does it fit well in other time periods?
I mostly did it modern day because it had some great. How do you call it? had a great contrast between the modern day issues and these kind of archaic characters. Sometimes that was fun to play.
Yeah.
Like someone who doesn't really fit in this time, and the problems of modern day, how that complicates you being a vampire. But we did Dark Ages, Medieval Ages. We did flashbacks. So we'll do a flashback to the 60s. We'll do a flashback to like
cool.
the 1920s. You know, you'll pick times in the past that are important and you'll just play it. It's the same character. Like this character's been alive for 200 years. So you're playing your character in 1920s. You know, you can do a little what happened 80 years ago scene. So that we do shit like that all the time. That's fun.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And I like kind of what you were saying. I found too with the more backstory that your player characters have, at least in my experience, the easier it is to just riff off each other, to just keep going, you know? Even in like Call of Cthulhu, especially the way I run games, I always really, really, really encourage players to write more and write more about their, because like when I'm writing a character to play, I put tons into it. I'm the guy that comes to the table with like a 3-page, you know, biography on my character. And some people really struggle with that. And I'll sit down and help them with that, or just ask questions, you know, just ask 20 questions and let them answer it. Write that down. Boom. There you go. And just play with that. Yeah, it's a good time.
Yeah. I find myself every time I have a campaign now that I'm starting, I'll talk and have not necessarily session 0, but like a preamble of like, hey, here's my idea. I want to pitch. Like, are you guys cool with this idea or not? And if they're like, yeah, that sounds cool. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, here's some of the basics I have. Is there some things you guys want to add? And then I'll send them out a player like survey. And that will be all the parts where it's like, okay, name, like, what are you thinking for a background, family members, and like really get into nitty gritty there.
Yep.
So that way, like, I can have it, they can have it. We have points to reference back to. That's been pretty successful so far, but yeah.
Well, and sometimes I'll ask, because I think about this, like, you know, why are people the way that they are, right? There's always a reason. Nobody's doesn't just like poof, their whole personality and worldview just exists all of a sudden, right? There's cause and effect, right? Like maybe you view this thing this way because this happened to you as a kid, right? Like that's how people are. And knowing those types of things, I find helps me, and I've seen it help other players make decisions in character. And then also, like, what motivations do they have in the future, right? Like, what decisions are they going to make, and then where does that take the story? Sometimes that can get really interesting.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. It's been very. I play with a lot of different groups, put it that way. I think I have like 5 or 6 games that I run outside of the podcast.
I am so surprised. That's 6 games you got basically, right?
Yeah, basically I run just about 6 games. Once a month we'll play most of them.
Wow.
But it's really, it's fun to go through and see how everybody's approaching it with the group. Like, okay, this group, they're more to like, they just want to kill shit. So now that I know that, I can start tailoring how we need to go towards that. But yeah, it's just, I find it very interesting to see how all these people go about it and build these things. And at certain points, it helps me when I rarely get to play. I'm like, I liked when so-and-so did this. Like, I think that's how I want to approach it. Because that's always been my hardest part, is I GM so much that I kind of forget how to run or how to be like a good player, because I'm so invested in giving the GM the spotlight and wanting them to know what's going on. And like, okay, like I want to give them this attention because I know what it's like to be in that situation. I don't want to blow up what they're trying to do. That I don't really interact with stuff that they've set up, and that's something I want to work on if I get to play this year. But yeah,
that's a hard habit to break. I think I'm in the same boat where I've become a GM PC. I don't know. I think like that.
Yeah,
I'm like, what's my character's role in this story,
right,
as opposed to like, okay, I got to take what is my character's story, and I got to make it my character's story. That's what most players are doing. Like they want to tell their character's story, and they're injecting it into your game, right? Which is what we kind of want to do. But when I play a lot of the time, I'm like, oh, I see what Chris's story is. All right, and I know how I fit in Chris's story, and I kind of like, I'm helping you out. Sometimes I got to lose that mindset.
Oh no,
and just
absolutely.
be a player.
Yeah. I struggled it with doing the handlers only game where there were so many people there. I'm like, well, these guys are GMs as well, so like I don't want to take all the spotlight. I want to make sure they have all that time because I am so used to having the spotlight constantly. I'm usually the one talking when it comes to running a game. I'm like, I don't need to talk as much, but I do because I'm a player character. Like I need to interact with the world. So it's getting out of that GM mode, that dichotomy, like understanding more of like, no, I need to be part of this. So
yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
like trying to play your character like a character as opposed to, okay, I see the puzzle shape that I'm supposed to fit into, yeah.
No, but hey, I'm from the little bit I've gotten to play, I've really enjoyed it. So I'm very happy, and hopefully we'll be able to play again here relatively soon. But kind of want to pivot to ask you guys, just do you know right off, like when you're planning a session and you've got a campaign idea, do you ever hit a point where you need to just pull the plug on it because it's not working? Like, have you guys ever had that happen to you where you've got a campaign going and like maybe 4 sessions in, you're like, this isn't the way I've wanted it to go, or I don't think the people are having fun. Like, I know kind of one of my defining moments as a GM for me was the first time I ever ran my own first home campaign. I created this whole elaborate backstory to get the party involved, and not a single person bit on going on this adventure. And
Wow.
It was really tough. And I was like throwing stuff at them to try to lure them to go on this adventure. And it just got like preposterous to a point. And I had set up this dream sequence where I got a hat and I wrote a bunch of different dreams and put them in a hat for everybody to pick out, but they were all the same dream, thinking that they would talk about those dreams in the morning. Never brought that shit up. No one ever brought it up again. It was like it didn't exist. And I was just like, so at that point I was like, I think we're done here. Like I don't think I'm going to be able to complete what I've got going on here. Have you guys ever hit those roadblocks?
Yeah. Well, and it's tough because sometimes like you don't want to. It doesn't feel good to just be like, hey guys, can we do this? I'm obviously throwing you a bone here or a hook, right? Like, hello. And I mean, if they've played before, they should know. They should recognize that a hook is a hook, and the GM is asking you to bite it, right?
Right.
I've had players that were like super rebellious, and anything that they even thought might be an obvious hook, they would deliberately avoid because they wanted to like start a brewery in a dwarf hold or something, and just like go way off. And it's like, why are you even at this table then? If you're just, you know what I mean? Like, and I always want to have space for that type of shit, right? Because that's fun, right? It's super fun if Google Mesh has a brewery in a dwarf hold, you know what I mean? But like, yeah, I had a game that I was running. It was also like a D&D homebrew with some friends, and it was going okay, and then it wasn't so much the campaign that like fell apart. But like there just was drama amongst the players, and they just started to go off the rails. It was really weird. It was like they were forcing themselves to show up because like this person's friends with this person who's friends with that person, but that person doesn't get along with this person. So then everybody's showing up, but there's like this weird thing going on, and I'm just there to like drink and play D&D.
Right, yeah.
So it's like, oh, you in the middle of the woods, you see this mysterious black orb, and I'm just gonna walk into it. Really? That's what you want to do? You want to just walk into the black orb? And I'm like, I did not think somebody would do something like that. So then I have to think on the spot, okay, what's in the black orb? And anyway, yeah, obviously that didn't last very long after that point.
Yeah. I mean, it seems to me like what kills most campaigns is player issues. And scheduling is the biggest one of those.
Yes.
But many times it's just something happens with your players. It always seems like something happens with somebody at the table. Whether they move or they get sick or they get busy, and all of a sudden it's like, they have something else going on in their life that really makes it so they just don't make your game a priority. And that's so frustrating because they don't want to tell you, maybe they don't want to play, but they don't say that. They're like, I'm busy. There's always some excuse.
Yep. Yeah.
So it comes up. Or then sometimes 2 players, like something will happen and then like you'll hear from one of them, that like, I don't want to, if that guy's coming, I don't want to come. And all that kind of interpersonal. I don't know how we keep these tables together.
It's really true.
It's amazing when we pull this stuff off. If it goes more than 6 months, I'm impressed.
Oh,
any
absolutely.
table that the group that goes that long.
No, it's one of those things. As I've gotten more GMing, I've kind of set a ground rule for myself of I'm going to put as much effort into the campaign as the table is, and I'm not going to get super excited. I'm not going to put a ton of effort if I'm not getting it from the players. And I don't necessarily know if it's not fair to them or whatnot, but I need to be more fair to myself of I don't want to spend 12 hours putting together this dungeon crawl for them to just be, oh yeah, if my character dies, I don't care. Like I had that one time in a game. We were playing, the guy forgot his character sheet. He's like, oh, just go ahead and kill him. I don't really give a shit. It's like, well, why are you here? Like, what are we doing? Like, why are we doing this then? Like,
yeah.
I don't know. It was odd. It did lead me to a question I wanted to ask you guys about something along those lines, and I don't remember what it was. So when it comes back to me, I'll ask it then.
How dare you? How dare you waste my time?
That's what I do. I'm really, really good at that. So
I doubt that.
Well, here's one. I guess how often do you guys homebrew stuff? And if you do, what's the creative process for that, if any?
I mean, I'll go first. I feel like I do a lot, but I always start from something. I always start with something. There's always something in the book or that happened, or there's always something that happened, or usually I'll read something in the book, and I'll be like, That's always my reaction. Like it just doesn't hit me very. I don't really like the way they wrote it. I don't like whatever something be little the way they describe it, whatever it is, And I'll like, what if it was this instead, and I just change it, or there'll be something in, it's always like I see something and I feel underwhelmed and I'm like, no, I want to be whelmed. I want to make this better. And so then I start making stuff and changing stuff and thinking of a way, something that's interesting to me, or also with your players too. Like sometimes you'll throw something at your players and they're not that interested and you'll kind of get a sense from them. Oh, they actually like this other thing better. And then you'll just, just homebrew it, you'll fix it, you'll change it.
Yeah.
So it's something that really works with what they were looking for. So it's you play it by ear a lot is what I do.
Yeah. I've had that happen with like side characters that the players just like focus way more on this guy. So then, okay, now I got to change how important he is. Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. No, I remember classically playing Pathfinder. I had a character named Gut Rot Jerry, who was just this fat peg leg guy that the NPCs loved and adopted Gut Rot Jerry, and so he just have to be like, all right, everybody, we'll go do this now. Like I got like a really Cajun voice, terrible Cajun voice, and he was the staple for that campaign for a long time. So,
yep.
Awesome.
I think I mostly homebrew. I think I maybe explained this in the Stories and Lies Discord, but I'm really bad with lore. Like I don't care about lore. Like I don't give a shit about established lore. And I appreciate people who do, because I think that's a very cool thing to take a world that somebody else has made and like put your own little stamp on it and change it. And I really I think it's great. Like that's what I love about Stories and Lies, like 9mm Retirement Radio. Like you guys play within the confines of what Delta Green is. Whereas I'm just like, fuck it. We're going to just, this guy's in charge now. Like I don't really follow any set pattern there. So I've always just homebrewed. Every time I've tried to run a campaign, I get really bored with them. Like I remember I tried to run Horde of the Dragon Queen in 5th edition, and it was just terribly written. It's a garbage campaign, and I will say that right now. Like it sucks butts. Even our Pathfinder 2e game I'm running for the podcast guys with Age of Ashes. Like it's just such a slog of fights. I'm like, this isn't fun to me. Like every room has to have a fight. I'm like, well, no, I'm just going to cut out half these fights because they're really not. Why? Why are we fighting 19 fights in a row? Like it's just boring after a while. Like I want to get to the meat of the story. I want to tell the story. I want to progress it further. I want to see these grandiose ideas come to life and not be stuck here with, okay, well, you didn't see that trap. Now we're going to go through 45 minutes of combat to fight 3 kobolds that don't matter to the story. So,
yep.
But yeah, I find myself doing a lot more homebrew from the get-go, and I still do it, probably to a detriment. It probably would be good to have some lore of understanding of stuff so I can help me when I build out worlds with lore. I'm very much just like, fuck it, I'll figure it out when I get there. And that's not always the best approach.
Yeah.
So.
One thing I want to say about lore is you got to like the lore. Like when I'm reading it, if I like it, I'm like, oh shit, I want to use this. And that's
Sure.
I feel like the Delta Green guys do a great job with that. They've written something that gets my attention and gets my imagination going. And that's why I use it. Like I don't use it because it exists. That's not a reason for me. I use it because I'm like, oh, this shit is cool. Like I like these characters. I like the situation they're in. It all flows in these interesting ways. Like A leads to B, leads to C, leads to D, and I like that flow. So that I only play in lores of systems and stories that I like.
Oh, true. Yeah. I just like lore is the last thing I read when I'm doing a system. It is the very last thing I go to. I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I'll figure Stars Without Number. The lore within that book, really cool. Like there's a psychic event, like the psychic scream that kills like 90% of psychic users in the world. And so that's why all the warp gates shut down, because the warp gates are powered by psychics. So like wherever you're at when that happens, you're stuck in that system. Like it's very hard to travel outside of it. That's a really cool like aspect, but
yeah,
at the same time, I'm always like, well, I kind of want to have more travel, so I'm just going to ignore that part until it becomes relevant. So
there was a really interesting game I played that it had like a similar premise. I can't remember. If I remember the name of it, I'll say it. It was like I can't remember. But it was a similar thing where Fast and Light travel was through gates and portals and whatever, and then one day they all just stopped working. So now everybody's just trapped, or at least in the game, in this one little solar system. It was really cool. But nice. In terms of going back to the what's it called? Homebrewing stuff. I'm kind of a mixture of both of you guys. Like, lore matters a lot to me, right? I want to be true and accurate to it, but also I cannot be bothered to sit there and read and do scratch and like notes and everything. So that's where I have, for the stuff I write, I have spreadsheets with pages but yeah, I'll put together my own lore and put that into spreadsheets and with like pages and multiple characters, and this is their motivations and how old they are and how many kids they have. Like I get really into that stuff. But it's all stuff that I'm making, And then Similarly, I think most people pull their creative ideas, kind of like what Tom was saying, where it's like, here's this thing that's kind of neat, but it could be neater, and this is what I'm going to do with it, At least I do similar stuff. I'll be listening to a conversation and then like, ooh, bam, pull that out, flesh that into something else,
Yeah, I like Delta Green. One of my favorite pieces of Delta Green lore is like the ghouls in Louisiana during Hurricane Katrina. Like that is one of the like I would love to set a campaign during that time and go over that, like, and the deal that's made and everything. So it's like I've always been fascinated by that area or that like time period. So it's very cool to listen to both of your podcasts who take place in specific time periods of our own history. And I know I talked with you, Tom, like when you guys did the Deadlights. I was like, well, did you make up these actual places in New Mexico, like Roswell? Because like I know for me, I'm 100% going to go and look and see what businesses were open during the 90s there and try to pick as many of them that were relevant, because that's just how I work. Like I can't help, like I need to be accurate because I'm afraid that someone's going to call me out and be like, well, that technology didn't exist yet. It's like, fuck.
Well, but also they didn't have fucking ghouls and gremlins.
Sure, right, that's true.
I know, but like,
it's like I've been seeing people complaining about that Odyssey movie coming out. They're like, oh, this armor's not historically accurate. It's like, well, do you think the Cyclops is going to be historically accurate? Right. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, it's like...
I have similar fears with mine about like historical accuracy, but but it's also like if like, oh, this train had this type of engine and not that type of engine. It's like, dude, shut up. Like, you know what I mean?
It's a large fear of mine to run games like in a established universe, like a Star Wars or something like that, because I don't know dick about the lore, and I feel like it would just be me saying something and just being like, actually, the Kyber crystal couldn't be that color, and I'd be like, man, fuck you. Like, I don't care. Let me tell my fun story.
Glup Shido couldn't have been there in this time because she was actually born in... Yeah.
So... That's all. I don't think that's a realistic fear to have. Like I will be clear about that. I don't think players are going to do that. They're going to be fun and they're going to be happy. They're getting to play in their favorite settings. but it's just like a personal fear I have of having to run into that one person that potentially is going to do that. So
yeah, that's an interesting point, because it, like for me and the show we're doing, Stories and Lies, like we use a lot of the established lore, and I hadn't even thought about that. Like, what if we fuck this thing up? What if we do something different than what someone else knows? The audience like knows these characters, and what if we do it differently? Most of my thought is like, I like my version better, is what I'm thinking in my head.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about the option of someone's being like, oh, but actually that particular person wasn't working for that division of the FBI at that time. They're actually working in this office. I'm like, oh, shut up, man.
Well, that was a big thing. Like when you asked me to do voices for Stories and Lies and play a pretty big character, like I was extremely nervous. I'm like, what if this is not like what people's headcanon of this character is? Like, am I going to do it justice? Like, what? Like, I don't know enough about what this is. Like, okay, like I'll go with it as long as they're happy with it. Cool. But there was definitely a lot of insecurity on my end of like, fuck, I hope I get this how they want it.
Well, and it's an interpretation, it's,
it is.
If somebody was making a Disney Plus Star Wars show that was super inaccurate to the lore, then I can see people complaining about that considerably, right? Because they would. But if it's a role play podcast and you're like, hey, this is like Star Wars with our twist on it, you just say that you say that one time and you've immediately filtered out those people that would otherwise complain. I think, like my show, right? This is 1911, but it's my version of 1911. It's pretty close to historically accurate, but also, there's some little things that are changed outside of just the supernatural elements, right?
Sure. Yeah. No, that makes total sense. It's just, I don't know. It's just always one of those weird, illogical fears that I have about stuff. So it's like everything has to make sense to me. I can't just let it be like magic caused it. Like I have to have a cause and effect for everything that happens. And it really bogs it down when I have a really fun idea. I'm like, oh yeah, that'd be really cool. And then I start like having to piece out, how do I get from point A to point B in this campaign, and like instantly will derail because I'm just like, do you guys ever run into the issue where like you'll be brainstorming a campaign idea and then you'll run into another idea within that campaign? You're like, well, oh fuck, I kind of want to do that now. And then you go off on a tangent with that one, and then you completely forget the original idea and then just like spin off into tangents of ideas when you're planning. Anybody else have that?
Yeah, all the time, because I'll have an idea like what should logically follow up what just happened in the story.
Right.
Something will happen in the story. I'm like, okay, the next story should be about this sidetrack, but sometimes that sidetrack doesn't interest me.
Yeah.
Or the idea I have is just kind of blah, and I'm like, and then I struggle. Like I have to think of something cool to do with this sidetrack, and eventually my mind will think it's just something different. Like, you know what? Let's just do something else. Like, I'll leave that alone. Maybe one day I'll follow that sidetrack. But for now, I really like this other idea better. And maybe it's just a new idea. It's a new problem. We introduce a new problem, and we kind of save that unfinished storyline for another day to maybe maybe one day we'll settle that out.
Yeah. Well, and I've been trying, because I suffer from the same anxiety, maybe is the word you'd use, where it's like everything needs to make sense. Exactly right. Like this happened on this date at this time, which made this thing. I'm trying to like leave more of that up to interpretation. You know what I mean? For myself. And then, by extension to other people, because it's less stressful of a creative process. It's less time consuming. It's less energy, right? Exerted on the tiny little minutia that really most people probably won't care that much about. Right? Like what kind of horse did Napoleon ride at Waterloo? Right? Like, do I need to write that down?
Yes,
probably.
Yes,
well, actually, it was a brown horse, not a white horse. Okay. So, yeah. And then like with ideas, right? Tangents and losing interest, or maybe not being that interested. I think you need to be a little bit in love with an idea. Otherwise, it just becomes work, as opposed to an art or whatever, a fun, enjoyable, creative process. If it's just like, okay, I have to tell this story about, the FBI and whatever. It's like, well, how can you get away from that into something you prefer and would have more fun with?
Yeah, absolutely. Were you the one that was telling me, Cody, that you carry around like a little notepad and like notebook and write down ideas and they hit you?
I try to. I try to. Yeah, I have the notes app on my phone, which I'll shoot some stuff into there. I also try doing like voice memos, like a little voice recorder, like a Dale Cooper-esque, like Diane, But then, I have a little notepad in my breast pocket in my jacket all the time with a pen, and I'll write that stuff down. Then I have a larger notebook in my bag that I'll transfer that into, and then make those point 1, point 2, point 3, and then go and flesh those out on other pages.
That's really cool. Yeah, I'm trying to write more and rely less on like Google Drive to put all my notes in. I'm trying to do more like handwritten notes. I don't know. I think because I retain the information easier. I retain it more when I have to write it. I think that's what it is. But
I'm similar. Yeah. I'm very similar. There's something like I work on a computer primarily at my job, and then some of my hobbies, right, are also looking at screens, right, video games or movies, whatever. And it's like just this one thing. I'm just going to write it on a piece of paper, and then when I need to, right, I'll put it into Google Docs and make it nice and formatted and everything, and maybe print it out for the players. But the initial, I'll fill up an entire notebook, a whole 90-page spiral-bound notebook, and then of that, maybe 15 pages actually make it into a Google Doc.
Wow.
Because there will be entire pages where the next day I'll be like, I didn't like that very much, right? And then that one page I didn't like very much had like 4 other pages connected to it, and then those 4 pages I'll cannibalize into something I like more. But yeah,
nice.
Yeah. One problem I have is when I actually write stuff down, it leaves my head. Sometimes that's good.
Interesting.
But like once I thought about something, I got it, I write it down, and then like the next day it's gone. Like, and my mind is working on something new. So oftentimes if I'm writing or just coming up with ideas, I don't. I leave it here, and my mind just keeps spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning until whatever it is, I'm done thinking about it. Then I'll write it down, and then my mind just thinks about something else. So it's an interesting process. I can kind of brain dump stuff that way, but it also makes me stop thinking about it and like stop improving it once I've written it down. That makes sense. I often don't do it initially because it's going to be like my first draft. Sometimes I'll do it. Of course, I'll change that anyway. Even though I write it down, later on I'll go back and I'll change it all up and whatever.
Do you guys ever revisit old campaigns that you've run or had ideas for and kind of like spruce them up or try to repurpose them for something? And I'll give you an example here. Old podcast I did a long time ago. We had the idea. Oh, I just pulled my headphones out, so I'm going to plug those in real quick. So that's what my foot does. There we go. This old podcast I used to do with some friends, we had this idea of this centered village in the middle of the woods. They were magically protected, and there's a whole bunch of bad shit outside of it. And every year, they would do like a Rumspringer, where they would gather a bunch of goods. They would go into the major city outside this woods. They would sell their goods, and they would come back. Some people would stay. You never really quite knew. And there's a whole bunch of different stuff going on with this rot in the world, and I created all these gods, and yada, yada, yada. And so the podcast eventually ended. I brought a bad person on to the show, and they kind of killed the vibe, killed the mood. And so I've recently been thinking about that campaign again as I'm reading Shadow Dark, and I'm like, I think this would be a really good campaign idea for Shadow Dark. Like, it's gritty, it's like very much like a hex crawl, it's very deadly, and so now I'm like trying to like, you know what? I think this year I'm going to try to take this campaign, rework it into Shadowrun or Shadow Dark, and see what I can pull off with it. But you guys ever like run into those old ideas? Like I know Tom, you guys kind of did that with Arc 105, right? You'd originally written that and brought it to the show, but
yeah, I've with the from time to time in our lives as GMs, there's going to be those stories that we just loved, and we got it on the table, and whether it turned out better or worse or whatever, it's still something that that I loved. And if I ever get the chance to bring something back to life, like with a whole group of people, I'll do it. Like there's certain stories I've run. I mean, there's some published campaigns. Published campaigns are easy because they're supposed to be run by thousands of people. But I've run some certain published ones like with like 2 or 3 different parties. People have never played it before. But yeah, if I could find a way to bring something back that's one of my darlings, I'll change it. I'll modernize it, and the players themselves will change it too.
Absolutely.
Which is so much fun because like, oh wow, I never thought this story would turn out like that. But 4 different people playing it, you can have a different story. So that's great. But yeah, if I'll bring stuff, I'll recycle. Absolutely, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've also rerun pre-written games before, and that's a lot of fun because you like everything in it is very defined. You know, this is where this is and that's where that is and everything. And then seeing how different players will make different decisions or interact, and then you have to like, oh, that's never happened before. Then you got to improv and come up with new stuff. And yeah, but in terms of like well, I'd like here's one, Apollo's Cradle, right? Like I ran that with a group of people before we did it for the show. And it turned out pretty different, you know, and I changed some things around for the show when we actually ran it for the show. But yeah.
Yeah, it's something I always have like a couple like big campaign ideas. Like I've always wanted to run a like fantasy World War II style like Western March hex crawl, and I just have this image of these troopers like jumping out of airships and like parachuting down into this fantasy land, and then there'd be, you know, your fantasy Nazi equivalents and going through all that. And I thought it'd be a really cool campaign to do, and like I had the idea that the players would have to roll for what they're going to be and like pick their specialization, so they wouldn't just come in and be an archer. They'd have to like pass archery classes to get into it. And I was like, I don't know if 5th edition or a D&D system would be good for that style of game. But yeah, it's something I've always wanted to run, but I just don't know how to with the modern systems we have that I can get people to play too. Like I could do it in Savage World super easy, but I can't find anybody to play Savage World. So
hey, I'll play with you.
There we go. Got one.
There you go.
You got one. You got one.
So I wanted to ask you guys, what goes into like a campaign prep for you? Do you get super granular and like plot out the like middle, beginning, end ahead of time? Do you leave a lot of space open? Has that changed over time for you? Like now are you just like, all right, I got these kind of couple ideas, I'm going to throw them at it, we'll see where things go, and I'll adapt as we go. Yeah, like I've been trying to get more into doing like a mind map of like different characters and how they relate to each other and stuff like that. But I was just wondering what your guys' kind of campaign prep is when you decide upon an idea.
For me, it depends on the idea, right?
Okay.
Some stories, or sometimes you'll have an idea where it's like, okay, this is like 1, 2, 3, 4 ABC. It's super easy to streamline, right? Just like where are the characters? Who are they going to be interacting with, or are they interacting with anybody at all? You know, versus something that's like, okay, you guys are in a town, you got to figure this shit out. It's a different, for me at least, it's a different type of prep. If they're going to be interacting with a lot of different characters and potentially, you know, there's going to be little set piece things that are happening, then like, yeah, I put a ton of time into prepping those things, right? Even like writing out whole pre-written descriptions of like, oh, you walk into this place and da 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 da. But then if it's something that can be a lot more loosey-goosey, sandboxy, whatever, because that's also, to me, I find both of them really fun and enjoyable, right? There's certain things I will have just like the loose framework, and then I'll just go into it and just make up the rest, you know, and make it up in such a way that it gets to that end point that maybe I want, or maybe I'll make a whole new end point.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, like one thing with campaign prep as opposed to just scenario prep, because we're talking about like a story over a long period of time.
Right. Yeah.
And most of what I think about is like what's really going on and who the other people are in the story and what they're doing. And it's like this is all stuff the characters are going to find out later. Like I'm going to introduce a couple of things in the beginning, but like you have to hold a lot of cards back. Like I want to unveil a story slowly, you know, of what's really going on shouldn't be known to the characters for quite some time. And maybe they have the wrong impression, at least in the beginning, you know, or they just know a bit player or an agent of, you know, or they think it's stories about this, but it's really about something much bigger.
Sure.
That's the thing. It's something much bigger than you think it is. That's what the campaign is. It's not the individual scenario. It's not this one mystery. It's not even these one bad guys. It's something even bigger than all of that. And it's like I want to lay it out slowly. So I have to think about that big problem. And then I have to all right, so what's the first story I'm going to tell? And how does it tangentially relate to my big story, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's why I focus on that. What's my entry point? What's my little mystery? And how I want to lay clues to what the big story is.
Yeah.
So, I mean, one thing about Call of Cthulhu and Delta Green, setting those there, those are investigative mystery, investigative horror, those are investigative stories where you have to have clues. And you have to actually have breadcrumbs and specific things that lead players to. So you really have to prep those mysteries a lot more, and those take a lot of work. Writing those stories, that's been the hardest thing. I didn't start out doing that as a GM. As a GM, I started doing pickup games and D&D games, and then 10 years or so doing World of Darkness, which is world building and improv, right? When I was doing a campaign for World of Darkness, I would okay, what's the problem? Who are the characters involved? And I don't know what the fucking solution is. We'll figure it out. And I'll just throw things at the players and problems and consequences, and we'll play through all the end results of their actions get played out. As we move along to what the big story is, who the big bad is. Mm-hmm. And maybe they figure that out, maybe they solve it, maybe they don't. I don't know. We'll get there.
Yeah.
But if you're planning Call of Cthulhu and Delta Green, you really have to have a lot more detail.
Yes.
Up front.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I kind of answered the wrong question. I did answer it as if it were for scenarios. Campaigns, yes, absolutely. Because I do. There is so much that goes into prepping those. Especially the longer you want it to go, obviously, the more you need to add. But then, here's the big giant A plot. And then the smaller B plot, and then maybe there's, the C plot is your monster of the week. And then how are these characters going to develop over time? What relationships do they have? And how are those relationships going to change? And then, like what you said, what do you reveal and when do you reveal it? And the earlier you reveal it, is it going to be forgotten by the time there's, the big reveal at the end where it's oh, I remember he said that thing 50 episodes ago and he just said it again. It's how many people are really going to remember that one line that some, one-off character said? Probably not a lot, maybe I'm sure a couple, but yeah. So I try to sprinkle as much as I can in that later on will be revealed, and then it all ties together and it's all satisfying and yummy and everybody's happy.
Nice. Yeah, I've been kind of approaching it two separate ways on my end. I'm really liking the play the find out method that I've been trying to Stars Without Numbers. I'm very much trying to go play to find out. And same with Traveler. I'm all right, I'm going to come up with 5 or 6 different ideas. We'll see what sticks. We'll see where they go. If I don't know, I don't even know where how they're gonna play out, but we'll play them out. Versus if I'm running Delta Green was very much okay, here's my. Here's the overall arching plot. Here are the major clues. Here are the places I can plug them in at. Because I don't like to do the Quantum Ogre kind of bit with clues, but sometimes you just have to. If these characters need to find a clue, you have to figure out a place to wedge those clues in that are going to make sense. If they're not looking in the place that you want them to go look. I don't particularly like the idea of having it. They're going to have to go to this one specific room to find this clue that's going to unlock the mystery. I feel like that's kind of a bad plan. But I mean, other people enjoy it, and it all just depends on what your table is. But I'm very much trying to embrace more of just I'm at the table to play the find out just as much as everybody else. I'm going to try it like Tom said. I'm going to try to come with factions, their ideas of how they're going to handle stuff, and then we're going to see how that gets affected. For example, Stars Without Number, there's a whole faction round that I'm going to plan on recording and take all the different factions, say, here's what's happened to the story so far, here's how they've reacted, I'm going to roll dice to see what they've done, if they succeed in what they do, and then that will kind of set up the next arc of it after that. But yeah, it's a cool mechanic to have in there, but I've been trying to embrace that more instead of getting super ticky-tacky with the details, because I'm going to get stuck in details. I know me. Even with one of the Call of Cthulhu games I'm running at home, I did that kind of that. I was like, okay, here's part A, part B, part C. Here's what's going to happen in part A. Here's like the big 3 plot points I want to hit. Here are the big 3 plot points for B. Here are the big, how do we get there? We'll find out. But once it feels right, I'll throw one of them out there. We'll see how it bites. We'll kind of go from there. So,
yeah. And I've played the really, like, I have a lot of fun, or I've had a lot of fun historically, and I know it's entirely because of the players, with the like total sandbox campaign settings. You know, the D&D games that I like wrote and ran a billion years ago were like that, where it's like, okay, there's factions and kings and whatever and stuff going on. Okay, what do you guys want to do? You know, what are your motivations? What's your backstory? And just, you know, making up a story along the way based on what the players want. Occasionally throwing in, you know, like, oh, here's a bandit mob, or this person asks you for a quest, right? The things to maybe, you know, put some sparks on the kindling if it's starting to simmer down a bit. Yeah. I haven't played one of those in a really long time, though. I kind of miss them.
Yeah, it's been interesting. It's been tough for me to like let go that much. Be like, all right, no, I'm going to put this on the players. What do they want to go do? Like, I'm going to react to what they do instead of always being like, then this pops out because I need something to happen.
Well, you really got to have the players for that type of thing. You know, are they the creative go-getters that you know want to start a mercenary band, right? And then like, oh well, where would a mercenary be the most profitable? They ask to the sheriff, and it's like, well, you know, if you went to Kettenberry, there's goblin tribes, and then they go there, and it turns out, oh, the goblins are paid off by a different king to destabilize the region, and you know, and you can have a lot of fun with shit like that. You know, I just made that up on the spot, and I'm sure that would be months of fun right there for a D&D campaign.
Trademark. No, it was something with Traveler that was really hard for me at first. After we kind of started getting into the groove of the storyline for Cepheid Variables, like, I don't feel like there's not a ton of action in this story. And then I had to pull myself out and be like, well, this doesn't have to be an action story. Like, this doesn't have to be they go in to kill everybody. I'm just stuck in my D&D mindset of there always needs to be combat. There always needs to be this. Like, as long as they're into like interesting situations and the players are having fun and they're pushing the story, that's what matters. Like, I need to stop being so combat focused or like trying to punch it up where it's like, no, like if they're having fun, like that's what matters. Like, not me having to throw like it was really weird because I've only run 2 guest campaigns in a sense that have had no combat. And I really like doing it because I want to challenge myself to do more of it. And I just something I noticed as like now that I've had time to sit on Cepheid Variable, I'm like at first I was a little leery, I was a little nervous. I was like, I don't know if people are gonna like this because like it's just them flying around in a spaceship doing shit. But I'm like, well, I guess that's kind of like Star Trek. There's a central problem. They eventually solve it. They go on their way. It doesn't have to be combat focused. And I had to break out of that mold. So
yeah, for a story, the story has to be a conflict, but it doesn't have to be a combat.
Right.
It's just a conflict of some sort. There's a problem that doesn't have a solution, that they have to find a solution. And oftentimes it's a lot of fun when there's the 2 solutions are either both bad, you know, or they're both good, or you don't know which one is good, you know, or you're picking sides. You're like, we have to choose between 2 different options. You have NPCs that each NPC wants a different solution, or your player characters want different solutions. But anytime you've got conflict and your players wrestling with a problem, that's great storytelling.
Oh, absolutely.
And that can be a lot of fun. We've all had games though. I mean, I kind of hate these games where my players don't want to make a choice. I hate those situations because I put a great problem. I put a great problem on the table. There's no good answer. And I'm like, well, you got to choose something. And the players just are like, well, there's got to be option C. There's got to be option D. Like, there's got to be some other choice than what we have before us. And you're like, no, the drama here is you have to choose. I mean, we can go, of course, the quintessential Delta Green example is Music from a Darkened Room, which has that horrible choice that the players have to make, you know, and many players are like, well, there's got to be another option, right? You're like, no, that's the problem with this scenario.
Yes.
Is there's a bad choice. And all the famous Delta Green stories have these, you have to do a bad thing, you know, and the players don't want to do.
Right.
And that's the conflict.
Yeah,
it doesn't mean we have to fight something. It's like we're fighting something on ourselves, or the characters or the players are struggling within themselves to choose something they don't necessarily want to choose.
Do you ever set a timer for players to make decisions. I've seen some folks will get, like the little hourglass, right? And
That's
like,
a good idea.
here's the situation, and go.
We to spoil an upcoming episode of the Sephi Vale Frontier. I did something similar where they were having a talk, and all of a sudden, like, you hear gunshots. What do you do? The gunshots are getting closer. You hear more, and they're like, shit. Like, they're trying to figure out what they're going to do. It's like, okay, like, no, like, try to keep this as real world as possible. Of like, no, you don't have half an hour to talk this out.
Yep.
Like, but that's why I love, like, but it depends. Like, if I'm playing Pathfinder 2e, I'll let them have that 30-minute conversation to figure out their plot points and how they're going to attack this dragon and blah, blah, blah. But Delta Green's like, no, this is heat of the moment. Someone's drawn a gun. What are you going to do? And if you wait too long, I'm just going to shoot you. Like, that's just how it's going to be. Like, they're not going to wait around and let you have this moral quandary. Like, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I like about Blades in the Dark. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that system, but it's a heist game. And the general premise is you cut straight to the action of the heist. You don't do any pre-planning. You just start in the heist and you roll dice, see where your position is, and you go through the heist. And if at any point you want to do a flashback to say, hey, I knew why we were going in here, so I stashed some extra clothes in this barrel so we could dress up as guards, you have to pay stress, and then you get that, essentially. But it really is alleviating because we all know players will plot and plot and plot and plot and plot. And hey, they'll keep plotting. And you have the perfect idea of what they're going to do. And then you as a GM, you can't be like, well, the monsters don't know this. That's the hardest part for me is I listen to this plot and I'm like, well, how do I not have my monsters respond perfectly to this? But they're dumb ogres. They don't know any of this shit.
I also like it when I listen to their plot and the whole time I'm like, none of that matters. None of this is going to change anything that happens.
Yeah, right.
Go ahead. Keep plotting.
Yeah. No,
It's a lot of fun to listen to. It's a lot of fun to listen to.
It is.
Even if it may sometimes, especially if it is meaningless, where it's like, you know where it's going to go. And they're just like, well, but what about this? And what about that? And then none of it mattered. Sometimes that doesn't feel great as a player, but also it's like, yeah.
There we go. So, all righty. Well, I thank you guys for spending more time here. We're going to do this again, but figure we'd throw another one out these there, and we'll get released when it does. But thanks again for your time. We'll talk again shortly. So
yeah. Thank you, Chris. This is great fun, man. I hope we keep doing these.
I'm going to do it as long as you guys want to. So all right.